Hello and welcome to the Awaken Your Business podcast. My name is Tyson Sharpe, and after coaching hundreds of online entrepreneurs, it became very clear that the vast majority were looking to grow a successful business, unconsciously as a solution to feel enough, to feel worthy, to even feel safe and secure. And so it's in this podcast where we face those internal challenges head on, and we do it through self-connection, we do it through elevated consciousness and heartfelt courage, so that you can learn how to build a successful and aligned business simply as a byproduct of your personal awakening. So when you're ready, take a deep breath, and I'll see you on the inside. Here we go again. If you're on the fence, if you're at this point where you know you're being pulled, you know you're being called by your heart, and you're wanting to take that next step, but for some reason you're being held back by fear or doubt or frustration, whatever it may be, this is the conversation to listen to. We've got Asha Prasad here, who's basically the creator of the Prasad method, and she loves coupling Eastern philosophies with Western practices, right? So coupling those two, and that's how much, and you know how much I love these sort of topics and integrating both these worlds, because it just offers immense amount of insight and benefit into your life. And she's the clear example of following your heart. She dropped everything and moved from the States to Northern Europe just because she had a gut feeling to do that. That's all she had. All she had was her heart pulling her towards something. She didn't know why, but she just dropped everything, got on a plane, went over to a different continent where she was able to basically learn a different language, understand a bit more about how to set something up. And now she's just thriving with not only as a chiropractor, but also in her coaching and mentoring business, where she just transforms just CEOs, C-suite executives, helping them have a more fulfilling life and helping them follow their heart's guidance. So in this episode, in this conversation, we dive in deep in terms of how you can feel what your calling is, how you can feel where you're in alignment, and also what you can do in your day-to-day life to make sure that you're placing this as a high priority. And so there's so many things in here that you can implement. There's such inspiration in her story and what she had to overcome and what she's doing next. So if you love just inspiration, if you love having someone there that can offer you the knowledge that following your heart is okay, it's safe, you're being guided, then you're going to love this. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Okay, guys, welcome back. I've had what feels like 17 interviews in one day, and this is another one I'm excited about. So I'm still awake. I still have my voice. And it's really cool. Obviously, anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that the topics that flow out of me and that cause so much passion for me are obviously the areas around fulfillment and how we can follow our heart, how we can break away from the patterns of safety and security and significance and status and start to be on a path towards love, a path towards growth, a path towards contribution. And so we've got Asha here, Asha Prasad, and when I was looking at her work, not only did I see similarities in myself, but I noticed a big sense of someone who's just creating a lot of fulfillment in the world. So Asha creates huge change for C-suite executives and entrepreneurs and people of high level of success who all of a sudden realize they don't have that internal fulfillment and they're on a path that isn't their guidance. And so Asha, I want to first of all welcome you. I'm looking forward to this chat because I love different perspectives on this topic, and no doubt people who are listening will get a lot from it. We'll feed off each other for sure. But first of all, welcome, and I'd love to give you the platform to share a bit about yourself and why it is you do what you do.
Thank you very much, Tyson. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this time with you and your listeners. I am, what is my background exactly? It's been quite a journey, I have to say. I grew up in the United States with an Eastern background, Indian Eastern background in a Western society. So There were a lot of challenges that brought, and actually growth opportunities is the way I look at it when I look back on it, because it provided this really kind of like north and south, very opposite philosophies to grow up in, and how to integrate those became kind of a thing that I had started to master in my own life and started to realize that. And later on, I went to university, became a chiropractor, stayed in the States for a while. And then about 12 years ago, I really had a big calling. I myself was not, I had gone through a lot of different personal losses and some really, really rough times that really kind of brought me down what I would consider to the lowest of my low internally. Externally, everything looked fine, but I had this deep sense of like, there's got to be more. There's something else that I'm called to do. And at that point is when I decided to take the big leap and move continents. And I moved to Northern Europe, where I am located now, and learn a new language. And it was in that process that I started to see where the gaps were for myself, how I wasn't really truly connecting, even though I knew and I had been, brought up with so many different practices and philosophies, where those gaps were, where I was feeling unfulfilled and not happy, not joyful, and not really doing what I really love to do. And it was in that process, my own process, that I started developing and eventually developed what I call the Prasad method, and helping people. And I do have practices, have two practices where I see patients, but I also coach people and mentor people. And that is something that I really am very passionate about doing, because I feel like from my own personal experience and also working with other people, been able to gain a lot of different perspectives to be able to help people. And I can understand, it's always very powerful when we can get into someone else's shoes, right? That point of that perspective, to have that compassion and empathy to help people, succeed in the way that they want to in life.
Wow. Talk a bit about that. Talk a bit about what were the challenges specifically growing up, having, Eastern philosophies and that type of practice in a Western culture. What was the challenge there?
So the biggest challenge was, and the way I look at it is like in the Eastern philosophies and in my upbringing, it's all about looking at the collective whole, like looking at things holistically, looking at the entirety of something. And in the Western society, generally speaking, it's more about the individual. It's more about, let's set these goals, let's the real drive. And that was a challenge, because it was kind of like, okay, I'm learning to look at the whole, but I'm still an individual and I have to succeed. I had this idea that, I really have to succeed in this way and it has to look a certain way. And it was a challenge to integrate that spirituality, that philosophy into, how do you match that with this external success? So it's an internal work, and I consider that the Eastern philosophy is really that internal journey, that internal connection with your true authentic self, and then combining that and integrating with the external. So that was really a challenge. I was doing things like meditation and yoga when my friends were clearly not at the time, and it was really a challenge. But I realized I went for a period of time of about 3 or 4 years where I just kind of, denied my culture, denied everything, and wasn't doing my meditation, for example. And wow, what a difference. My life became chaotic. I became chaotic. And it was very quickly that I realized that, wait a second, that's the foundation. That's a real foundational practice that helps me get connected with my true self and helps me be a better version of myself in the world. And once I realized that, I started to integrate that and incorporate that, because, at a younger age, you don't want to be left out. And even as we get older, we want to belong. We want a sense of belonging. And so that's what really led me to start integrating that.
Wow. And before you integrated it, it seems like you had external success, but then
Yes.
Was that at the same time? So before you left to go to Northern Europe, were you in a position where you had external success, but you were missing something internally? And was that because you had basically, I'll put it as slacking off, but not placing a high priority on the Eastern philosophies and yoga and things like that?
Part of it was, Tyson, that's a great question. Part of it was, but part of it also was I suffered quite a few losses in my family. I lost some friends, and it really, like, it happened very, very quickly, one after the other. And I think that whenever we experience traumas, I will consider them traumas and losses, it kind of brings you to your knees internally. It kind of brings you to your knees. You start questioning, what is this all about? What is the meaning of life? What am I doing? Like, am I really happy with? And so it was like the darkest of the darkest hours that I've ever had in my life. And it was through that, because it was such a dark, hurtful, very sad time. I wasn't doing my practices. So it really, like, I just knew, wait a second, there's something I'm not connecting with. There's something that's missing. What is that? And in that, I kind of, like, step by step kind of climbed the ladder back up out of that darkness through the meditation, yoga, and really looking at, where my consciousness really was. Okay, I had all this external access. People could see it. People were making mention of it, but I was so unhappy and unfulfilled. And that's kind of what led me out to that. And then, of course, that calling, when I moved to Northern Europe, it was really a gut feeling that came to me, like, probably in one of my lowest points, that, this is something you got to do. And it was scary. It was so scary. I mean, I can think back to even being on that airplane to move over here. I thought, 2 suitcases, that's it. And not knowing the language yet, not knowing anyone, it was really scary. But looking back, I can see how that really propelled my, transformational spiritual journey, actually.
Well, now that you're there, now that you're living there and learning a different language, do you know now why you had that gut response to say, make the leap and get on the plane?
I do actually. And you know what? And I also think, I do up until now. I think that over time, things get revealed to us if we're open to it and in a space to allow it to come up. I can see now that, when I look at 12 years ago and I look at now, that whole process, that kind of raw process, helped me actually get in touch with my true essential self, kind of dissolve some of the limiting beliefs that I had, some of the perspectives that weren't serving me anymore. And it allowed me to learn compassion and understanding at a whole new level, also for myself, because, when you're in a foreign country, not knowing the language, things like going to the grocery store become a challenge. Because you don't know what things are called. You're like, you've got Google Translate on your phone the whole time. Like, what is that? Oh, what's vinegar? Oh, okay, that's what it's called. You're like walking around for hours in a grocery store where it would normally take, 20, 30 minutes maybe. So you have to learn this compassion and patience. And that experience for me to go through that has helped me tremendously in helping my patients and clients.
Wow.
And that's
awesome.
So I really think it set me kind of on my path of, okay, you know what? What's really important? This is what you're going to do. And it wasn't always easy, though, I have to say. I think that we all can relate to that our journeys are not always easy. But some of the most beautiful things come out of those, the frictional times that we have in our life.
And talk about this timeline. So you, growing up in the States, what was it that you achieved when you weren't necessarily fulfilled, but everyone else saw you as externally successful? And then what is it that you're doing now?
So with so you know what, whenever I was in school, I was really, I was excelling like rapidly in school. I skipped a couple of grades. I was taking college courses when I was like about 13. There was a lot of like achievement, going to university, getting my degree at a young age. I think whenever I graduated, for example, with my bachelor's, I wasn't even 21. 21 is a drinking age in the US. I wasn't even 21 yet. It was like, and then went to chiropractic school and, excelled there, and then got into a very successful practice right off the bat, and just was seeing a tremendous amount of patients. And real, I mean, I learned a lot, but it was just like, high intensity, high levels of external success. And it was going great. It was going great. And from the outside looking in, people were just like, wow, you know what? She's just been like right on, like, right on schedule, right on target, has everything at a young age, and that kind of thing. And so in that time where everything kind of came crashing down in my internal world was when, it's like, okay, wait a second, what's important? What do I have? What's fulfilling? So now what I'm doing, when I first moved here, I had to work for somebody for a couple of years, which was interesting because I wasn't used to that anymore. Because when I left the States, I was working for myself, but for immigration purposes, I had to work for somebody, and that presented challenges for me. And I was in a situation where the philosophies were not matching. Okay. Because I had gone through this process of all this external success, but no fulfillment. And I kind of landed in a similar place, but it was in that I could see it very clearly. It was being reflected back to me. And so then eventually I left and started my own businesses here. So then I started I have 2 practices, and I started my online coaching and mentoring business. And I'm much more fulfilled and joyful now than I can say, 12 years ago when I had a whole lot of things, external material, success. To me, now it's like in that alignment, it comes to you in a different way, because you align yourself with your intentions, with what's important. And it's kind of like it just kind of flows, the abundance in every way flows to you, flows through you, actually, in a very different way.
And what is it specifically, can you attribute it to something specifically around why you now feel internally fulfilled? Is it that aspect of compassion? Is it that you're following a different mission? Is it that you're integrating 2 worlds? What is it specifically that allows you to shift towards that internal fulfillment now?
That is a great question, Tyson. I think the biggest thing is getting in touch with your true self. So getting out of the mind and integrating that with the heart, integrating it with your entire system. We've got this body, of course, we've got our spiritual self, we've got our mental, emotional, and physical self. But the thing is that whenever we start to integrate that and really get to know who we are, and let the ego and the mind, the ego and mind is needed. I'm not saying that that's not needed, but it's not going to be able to run the ship all the time. When we really make it the captain, then we can get off course very quickly. And I would attribute to me being able to kind of really connect with my true self, of course, through different practices of meditation and lots of different practices, but it's about really, learning, who am I? What am I about? What's my purpose? What do I want to do? How do I want to contribute in this world? What is it that I want to share? And when I got connected to that and realized that that was the only thing that I needed to really nurture, I would say that was kind of like the aha moment, like, okay, this is where it is.
And what would you say to someone who's asking themselves that question, where they're like, what do I want to contribute? Like, what is it that really means a lot to me? What is it that, what's going to help me grow? And you're asking yourself those deep questions, but you're like, I just don't know. What is it that I want to contribute? What is my mission? What is my heart saying?
Right.
How do you guide clients in that direction to find those deep answers?
I think, one of the things that I always like to ask clients to do is to take some time to write down or to jot down, like, what brings them fulfillment? What can they lose themselves in for hours? What activities do they find themselves like, oh my gosh, 3 hours have gone by, I didn't realize that. Those kinds of things, to really start taking notice in their day-to-day life, because that's going to give them a good indication of what they're passionate about and what really gives them more energy, where they could really thrive, rather than something that's sucking their energy out. And that's like one of the first things that I usually tell them to take notice of. And then we start to look at that and see if there's certain patterns, or see if there's certain kind of, themes that are coming up.
Yeah. Here's the next thing that comes up. It's like, I love doing this thing. I could do it for hours. I could just be in it all day, every day, and I'll be happy, but it doesn't make me money.
Mm-hmm.
What does that come up for your clients a lot?
Absolutely. It does come up for my clients a lot. However, that right there, the way that I look at that is that is a perspective, that is a mind shift that needs to happen. Maybe even a paradigm shift for people to look at. I can love, because we've been brought up to think we have to work for money, we have to work for it, and we don't necessarily have to enjoy it. So that's kind of like the way we've been brought up, most of us, okay? And to take that and to shift that. Now, in that perspective, there could be some things on a subconscious level that are blocking, that are like these beliefs that they've been brought up with that are kind of blocking them. So from a neurological standpoint, I would look at that and maybe use some techniques, some modalities and techniques to be able to clear those blocks, to be able to kind of reveal and kind of clear those out, to help people shift their perspective. Because I know that I hear that a lot, absolutely, about, well, I love this, but it doesn't make me money. Well, up until now, if we've been doing it just as a hobby or whatever, we haven't really thought about, if I do something with joy, it can make me money. And it really can. We just have to kind of get out of our own way at that point.
Yeah. When you get out of your own way, the creativity flows in a way where it's like, I can take this in any direction. But the thing that I found is that if you're doing what you love and it's pouring out of you, that is an indication. Like, that alone is telling you something, right?
Exactly.
And then we have these strict beliefs that I need to work hard and hustle. And if I'm not working hard and hustling, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to win. I don't deserve to achieve. I don't deserve to receive an income. And one of the keys with my clients all the time when we're exploring this type of topic, and they explore something they love, they're like, and we're like, what if you built a business doing this? And they're like, you can do that? Like, and it's just like a huge realization that they're like, I didn't even think that was possible. Right.
Right.
My question to you would be, what patterns have you seen, whether it be, people in business, whether it be C-suite executives, what are the biggest blocks that restrict people from following their heart and following their calling?
Yeah. I think one of the things, like some of the, top executives that I've worked with, for example, one of the things that they really feel, because some of them have, they have all this success and they've done tremendous work, but they're still feeling unfulfilled. And part of them is afraid. It's fear of the unknown, fear of letting people down, maybe fear of the change of their status, so to speak, of how people perceive them. I think really caring what other people think about them. I also think that some people just really don't believe that they deserve it. They feel unworthy of it. They've maybe been told that. They probably tell themselves in their, self-talk a lot. So I think those are the biggest things. I was just thinking about a client of mine that I worked with a couple of years ago. Once we worked through shifting his perspective, because he had a very, very successful company and he had great employees and was, he said, I really feel guilty complaining about the fact that I'm not happy with all this. He said, but I'm really not. And he took a trip to South America, just, with him and his family. And he was so inspired when he was there, just kind of in that downtime, just, leaving the office behind, leaving the business behind. And he ended up getting so inspired one day when he was there about starting a nonprofit organization down there and contributing to the community there. And that for him, he still has his company, okay? He still has his company, but that inspired him so much. And he's doing tremendous work in South America for the people there in several different health-wise, clean water, those kinds of things. And it was interesting because he now has much more joy and fulfillment. and has inspired a lot of his employees and, managers and things like that, to also encouraging them to find their passions as well, even if it's not that they, make a living that way, but to kind of, have the complete package, actually.
So what would you say right now? What would you say is your calling? What's your mission, your dharma, the thing that you're being pulled towards?
I think one of the things that I see is to bring more love and compassion to the world in any way that I can, to help people see their light within them and help them shine it brighter into the world. That's the biggest thing. That for my purpose, I guess I could say, and what my calling is to be able to do that in any way that manifests. I mean, like I said, I have a practice with patients. That's my goal there. That's like, that's what I feel called to do there in whatever way shows up with my online clients as well, that as well. And I think that to me is a really strong mission for myself. And I enjoy that. That brings me a lot of joy and actually gives me a lot of energy to do that.
I think we can talk a lot about this because I love coaching people around them building a business and having their business as their business success as a byproduct of their personal awakening, their personal transformation, and them just following their heart. I believe that I've been growing the community online and my client base and the content even just by what's flowing through me when I reach the place of kindness, of love, of compassion, of understanding, of contribution.
Right.
And so I believe people can build their success just as a byproduct of that. And one thing you mentioned before is that seems like a very fulfilling journey, but it's also very scary, right? It brings up a lot of fear. What do you think people are specifically scared about when they're making this leap towards that?
I think they're scared of failing. I think they're scared but you know what? They're scared of failing, but there have been a lot of people that I have worked with over the years that have actually been scared of the success. They've been scared of shining their light brighter. They're scared of getting out there, putting themselves out there. There's a sense of vulnerability that comes to play. And that is very scary for a lot of people. So, I've seen it on both sides, the scare of failing, just not succeeding at all, but also the ones that are scared of their own greatness, their own, gifts, and they're afraid to be seen in a way. And so those are the two things that I've seen a lot of. And of course, when we talk about Tyson, like as far as like, scared of losing everything materialistically, financially, those kinds of things, making that leap, especially if they're making a huge leap. There is some of that, but I think when you really get down to it, I think fear of failure and also fear of success, actually. How about you? What have you seen in that way with your clients?
Yeah, it's definitely along the same lines. It's definitely a lot of people are growing their online business, but it's not in alignment, for example, or their heart's calling them towards something else. And they're just like, they ask themselves, but how do you make money doing that? I don't know how I'm going to make money doing that. I don't think this is what people want. I think when I take the leap, I'm not going to know what to do. What if it doesn't work out? So there's obviously the risk of loss, the risk of failure, the risk of looking bad and being judged. What are people going to think? There's so many aspects of that where people are just, they're stuck. They're like, man, I know this is what my heart's pulling me towards. Why the hell is my heart pulling me towards something that's super scary? I believe that's because it's just leading you to the sides of you that you need to let go of. It's leading you to the sides of you that you need to love unconditionally. So for example, when I left my job, I had this huge fear around losing money. I had to love the side of me, the inner child within me that had the belief around money equals security and money equals safety.
Right.
So I had to have that huge leap. Was that something that, what did you have to overcome when you took the leap to leave and to get on a plane in a different country? What parts of you did you have to overcome or did you have to embrace?
It was about, can I do this on my own? That was a huge thing. Like, am I going to be able to rely on myself to be able to pull this off? Because, learning the language, meeting new people in a new job, just like everything. So like, I like completely like jumped in the deep end, like totally, because that was so scary. That was so scary. Like I was saying before, I remember sitting on that plane, and I remember like halfway through the flight, and it was a 10-hour flight. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I just done? I really had a freak out moment that I thought, okay, as soon as I get there, I'm going to get my bags and go check in and fly back. That's it. I'm not doing this. I mean, it was just like, I'm not going to do this. But it was really about that. Could I rely on myself? Could I do it on my own? Am I capable of doing this? And yeah, step by step. And sure, there were days that I thought, oh my God, I do not know, why is my soul taking me here? What is my spirit wanting in this? All those questions went through. I thought, my goodness, but step by step, I started to see, yeah, oh wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
Okay, I've learned the language. Okay, I've done this. Okay, this is not so bad. And it was about me being my true self. It was me, like that was the fallback. Actually, looking back on it, that was my fallback. Be yourself. Let your heart lead you. And then it opens up doors.
Was that the belief? Was that the internal belief that said, okay, if I'm my authentic self, if I'm my true self, my heart will guide me? Was that the belief that put you on the plane rather than keep you in fear in the States?
Yes, that was really about, well, I will tell you what really was going through my mind at that time was, if I don't I asked myself the question, if I don't do this 50 years from now, am I going to sit there with regret? That's really the question that I asked myself. And I thought, yes, I will have regret if I do not do this, if I don't try this. And I remember having a conversation with my sister at the time, and she said, you can always come back. She said, that's always an option. You can always come back. But if you don't try this, how are you going to feel? And that for me was the motivation to say, I'm getting on this plane. I don't care. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to live with regret, Yeah. Like I don't want to live with regret.
And no one does. I mean, we all need to sort of, study the works of Bronnie Ware, who wrote the four secrets, or the 4 regrets of the dying.
4 regrets. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and she basically says number one regret is, I wish I had the courage to live the life I knew I was meant to live, right? To be true and authentic to myself. And so that was me when I left to go to Canada. I had no clue. I had never traveled by myself before, and I was going on this trip and didn't know when I was going to come back. And I remember, similar to you, when the moment for me wasn't on the plane. The moment for me was when I left my family and went to basically just went through the gate to check in by myself. I just started sobbing because I'm like, oh my God, I'm just literally by myself. No clue what's going to happen on the other side. No clue what's going to happen in Canada. I don't know anyone. And it was just a crazy awakening for me. But I was being called. I was being pulled. I was having similar questions of, man, if I don't do this now, when am I ever going to get this opportunity? And so I knew I was going to regret that. So that's something everyone listening can ask themselves. It's like, if I don't do this, if I don't execute and take steps on this calling that's here, then will I regret that down the track? Like, will I regret that? And so I love how you help people find their authentic selves and live an authentic life. So you've talked about finding your purpose and your calling by basically exploring what gives you joy, what can you do all day, things that you will not get sick of, all those sort of things. What else can we do to help us find that true and authentic self?
I think, regular practice of connecting with yourself on a regular basis, whether it's with meditation or journaling or some sort of practice that gets you connected with, your true inner self, like that voice in the mind, the voice inside, that most intimate inner place that we have, that a lot of times we're so busy in our world, in our life, that we kind of neglect it, we kind of push it aside. I really think spending some time, even if it's only 5 minutes, even only 5 minutes a day, because I know one of the things that some clients say, well, I just don't have time for that. I'm like, you know what? Surely you have 3 minutes. I usually, sometimes with some people, I start with 3 minutes. I'm like, you have 3 minutes. I know you have 3 minutes. Okay. And then we start, that slowly. But I think that's really important to have some sort of, check in with yourself. And if this is where I think, Tyson, you probably have seen this as well. This is where I think working with a coach or a mentor is helpful to a lot of people, because some people, it's not that they don't have the discipline to do it. They just don't know how to do it or what to do in that, 3 to 5 minutes or whatever. And I think that coaches and mentors can help guide people in that way, to help them start, because it can be quite scary at first. Sometimes people sit there and they're like, okay, all the negative stuff comes up. Well, how do you quiet that down? How do you control that? How do you, process that differently and change your perspective? Sometimes it's difficult to do that on your own only. But yeah, that's what I would say is something to be able to start doing.
Beautiful. Now, you do have a 3-minute meditation that's on your website that people can check out. What do you recommend people do to start with in that 3 to 5 minutes that they're placing themselves in a chair or in silence or whatever it may be? What is it specifically that you guide people to do?
I usually love to get people connected with their body by breathing. Okay. Breathing exercises and integrating breathing. Like, we all breathe, thankfully, but we're never taught how to consciously breathe. At a young age, very few of us are really taught how to really focus our breath and consciously breathe. And the reason why that's important is that's an integration of what I consider the spirit with the body. We're integrating that, we're infusing that. And if we can learn to connect ourselves, because a lot of times we're disassociated with our body. Like, we've got our mind over here and our body is somewhere over here. That's why I think, generally speaking, in our society, there's a vast amount of prescription medicines to kind of suppress the symptoms. Okay. Just suppress it rather than feel into it. There's kind of this idea of, let's push that away. I don't want to feel things. If I get a headache, let me just pop a pill, not really asking, is there something else that's causing it? That kind of thing. So I like to get people to really connect with their body through breath. So in that 3 to 5 minutes, just really taking some moments to take some deep breaths in and out. And at the beginning, you don't really have to do it a specific way. Just start to do it. Start to make that connection. Because on a physiological level, that's already going to start changing the nervous system, the way the nervous system is reacting, and it'll give you at least 3 to 5 minutes of some calmness, of some just relaxation. And, in that state, we're able to tap into our creativity a lot easier and inspiration.
I find also, for those who say they don't have time, I think this makes time, because I do 2 hours of meditation every day, and I don't recommend that for everyone. This is just my journey, but I sit in silence for a lot of the time, and I'll wake up and I can sense that my ego and my mind is running the show of, oh my God, I've got to do this, and this. I've got 3,000 interviews today, and I've got to do this blog and this post and this Instagram or whatever, and whatever it may be. And when I go and sit down in silence and put that connection with myself as a priority, is what you're saying, I realized I didn't have to do any of that. I didn't have to call that person. Exactly. I didn't have to send these messages, check my emails. I didn't have to do any of that. I basically feel into it and then follow my heart and what feels aligned, what feels guided, what feels in flow, and what feels creative. And then I start creating rather than, following a schedule that my ego built, and it creates time, I find. And so many people message me saying, how much do you get, you're doing all this stuff, how do you do all this stuff? I'm like, I don't do anything. I'm living a very relaxed lifestyle at the moment. And when I do interviews like this, and I do put in a lot of effort, it's very guided and I love it. It feels fun. I love having these conversations and organizing interviews and doing all that thing. And so that's what I find, is that if you don't have 5 minutes to place that as a priority, you'll be stuck in the patterns and stuck in the egoic mind that just runs
Right.
on repeat until you find a way out of it. And this sort of seems to be one way out of it. Is that what you found?
Yes, I think that that is very important. I was thinking about the fact that one of the conversations that I have with some of my clients is that, listen, if you don't give yourself 5 minutes to take care of yourself, think of it as a self-care kind of 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, you can't be there for other people in your life fully, fully
Mm.
present. And how important is that to you? Because I know a lot of people are thinking about, well, my wife, my kids, my employees, about the extra, and that's great. That's good. But at the end of the day, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't be there for the other people. We suffer, or if our health suffers, if our well-being suffers, it transfers to everybody that we associate with. So, but I agree with you, Tyson. It is something, what, it creates time. And there's something so beautiful about that organic flow that can happen. It's a magical way of operating. And you can be relaxed. You don't have to have this high pressure all the time kind of on your shoulders.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So what is some tips or some advice you have for people who are wanting to integrate some Eastern philosophies with their Western lifestyle so that they can find more of their path, get on more of their calling, and start to serve in a way that they really want?
Well, I think, exploring, first of all, what it is. I think there are a couple of different things. Exploring, first of all, what it is that you really want. How do you really want to create? How can you envision, if you can just daydream, sit and daydream, how would I love to spend my time? How would I like to feel? And that'll give you an indication of probably some of your beliefs and some of the things that you can kind of deepen. Of course, you can read books and you can, do a lot of things. I would say one of the first things that you can do is start with this quiet time that we're talking about, meditation or stillness. I think that's one of the first things that I would recommend for somebody to do. Get involved in some sort of meditative practice or some sort of quiet moments for yourself, and maybe journal about it and write about it, because what that's going to help you do, it's going to help you start to build the new circuitry in our neurological system. Whenever we do that, that allows us to follow through with these new practices. We can't, of course, we can just start, but it's also something that we want to have ongoing. We want to implement things that are going to be lasting, right? We don't want to just do a meditation for 10 days because we think it's going to, give us X, Y, Z result. It's about a lifestyle change. And we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to take it step by step. And that's what I would really recommend for people to do initially.
Okay, great. And you recommended that we can read and learn and engage in books. Is there anything in particular that you study, or any books that have opened your mind, or things that you would recommend some people read and study so that they can start to integrate some of this stuff?
Well, that's a really good question. I read a lot. I will tell you, like with the Eastern philosophies and things like that, I was brought up with a lot of the ancient scriptures, reading about the Vedas, reading the Bhagavad Gita, reading J. Krishnamurti. He's a very philosophical man from way back when. So I've done a lot of, Joseph Campbell's another one that I have done a lot of reading and looking at. So there are some things like that people can actually access and read. And I think that it's going to be whatever kind of speaks to you, because there's so much out there to be able to fulfill. For me, it's been a combination of, some of the Buddhist and Hindu, of course, scriptures and text and those kinds of things that have been a biggest influence for me. But I have found that you'll get drawn to, you know, Tyson, like what we were talking about, like being in that flow, you'll get drawn to certain things. You'll hear somebody, like, for example, when you start to quiet down and start to listen from inside, you'll start to hear, you know, you'll hear somebody talking about a movie. You'll hear somebody talking about, you know, a book or something like that. And you'll be drawn to what it is that you need to hear and be exposed to.
I've definitely noticed that since I
Yeah.
started studying meditation, and I was just being guided to Wayne Dyer. I was guided to
Right.
therefore more Eastern philosophies and ancient wisdom around the Tao Te Ching and Taoism and Buddhism.
Right.
And I actually do know of Physistas Yoga.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I ordered that book. It hasn't arrived yet, but apparently Wayne Dyer recommends it. He was going through, and it's apparently this huge 600-page book of just this dialogue of Indian masters. And so I'm going to dive in deep in that. I have no clue why. I think I'm undertaking something that's of massive proportion, but I think it's a calling to me. It's interesting, and it's something that has just flowed one after the other. Like you say, things will call to you. Things will be interesting. Things will just come into your life that's meant to. And following that allows you to follow your Dharma, it'll get you closer to your path that you're meant to be on. And what's interesting is your mind sometimes doesn't know why. You know, like you said, you just knew that your heart was guiding you, and you had this gut feeling that said, you know, get on a plane, right? Go to Northern Europe and tell yourself and show yourself that you can do this by yourself. You didn't know why. You had no clue why, but you just trusted that, and you had that belief. So that's so cool. Is there anything else that's coming through that business owners or people who are wanting to jump on their path can implement in their life that you would recommend?
Well, I would say, you know, one thing is that if you're a business owner, you know, or you don't even have to be a business owner, entrepreneur, anybody out there that is really starting to question, like, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? You know, open up yourself to listen to different podcasts such as yours, Tyson. You know, I think that you've got a great platform here where you share some very interesting perspectives. You know, I encourage the people out there that are kind of questioning to give yourself some time, invest the time in yourself to be open to listening to other perspectives, to seeking some help about how you can make these changes. You know, don't be afraid. Don't let that fear stop you. Yes, I know it can be scary, but try not to let that stop you, because you just take that first step, and I tell you, you're already going to feel a lot better about what, you know, the changes that you're going to do, and it's going to impact your life in a very positive way, and also those around you. So I would just encourage people to just kind of open up and be open. I mean, you know, we're in an interesting time right now with this COVID-19. I mean, practically the entire world was on lockdown, and some countries still are on, you know, partial lockdown. I'm not too sure how it is down there for you guys now. Tyson, are you guys?
We've lifted some of the restrictions, but definitely still all in caution, and definitely mostly on lockdown.
Exactly. So same here. And, you know, here's the thing. This is an opportune time. I see it as an opportune time to reinvent ourselves, to recreate what we're doing, to kind of hit the reset button and say, okay, what was working, what really wasn't working, what really wasn't fulfilling. Now's the time to kind of really investigate that and kind of really get some introspection there and take a look at that. Take advantage of that right now.
And as you look in during this time of isolation, is there anything that's an expansion for you that your heart's pulling you towards that might be a bit scary, or something that's on the other side? Is there anything that you're being called towards?
Yes, you know what? I realize more than ever now, like in this time frame, what's really coming out for me is that I'm going to be moving more into just more teaching, more coaching, more mentoring, and less patient care. And that is, I will always do patient care on some level, of course, because I really love it. But I'm feeling this huge shift for me coming up, that I'm just being pulled. I'm literally just being pulled in that way. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It's scary. It's like, I don't know what it's going to look like or anything like that. but I've done that before. I've been there
Yeah.
before. It's okay. I got this, you know? So, that's really what's happening for me right now.
It seems like you've definitely, definitely conditioned that muscle of following your
Yes.
heart. You know, if you can leave your home and go to a different country with a different language and not know why, just understand that's your heart's calling. That's strengthening that muscle of
Right.
trust, of faith, of knowing. And
Yeah.
so what I found in my life as well is that you get more and more of that trust, and you take more and more of those leaps. Once you take the little leaps, once you take the little leaps, it
Exactly.
just builds and builds and builds, where eventually you can take those larger leaps. That's incredible. So where can people find you, more about your work?
So people can go to my website, theprasadmethod.com. I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at the Prasad Method, and people can reach out to me on any of those platforms, or through my website through the contact page.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, if you're looking to just expand with this stuff and couple the Eastern philosophies with the Western practices, with all of that stuff, definitely reach out. This has been, I love these interviews. I love just being able to geek out on this sort of stuff, because this is my calling, is heightening the level of consciousness of the planet, of
Right.
business owners, of entrepreneurs. And I think more and more people are being drawn to this sort of work once they realize where a lot of your clients are, where they're like, what I'm doing is not fulfilling, and where the hell do I begin with a more fulfilling journey? So
Right.
I just want to thank you. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge you for getting on that plane, right? Getting on that plane. And that's obviously not only, it's kind of a bit metaphorical in one sense, but literal in another sense. But getting on the plane and following your heart, because you're doing what you can in the world. You're just being vulnerable, open, and honest along the way. And I just really appreciate the time here and what you've shared.
Thank you so much, Tyson. I really enjoyed talking with you today and sharing this time together, and loved hearing about your journey as well. So thank you, and keep up the good work, and putting all your light out there in the world. So yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Awaken Your Business podcast. If you're like me and you have a heart that wants to contribute, you might want to come join us over on the online Facebook community called Connect, Contribute, Collaborate. This is the community of heart-centered business owners who are all doing this internal work. We mastermind around the latest business topics, we collaborate with each other to grow as one, and we do what we can to assist some charities and worthy causes around the world. So head over to tysoncoaching.com, where you can find the link to join. And if you know you want to dive in deep into this work yourself, sign up for the free transformational group coaching calls. Whether you want to uncover some unconscious patterns or shift those you're already aware of, or maybe even just benefiting from the live coaching of other members, there's always takeaways that lead to more peace and clearly more business success on the other end. Because I believe it's not what you learn here that's going to help you with your awakening, it's what you actually do with it. So if it feels like your expansion, jump over to tysoncoaching.com and I'll see you in the community. Take care now.